Hi, and everyone, and thank you for coming here, and we welcome you all here to this, the Experimental Media and Performance Lab here at UCI, where we are presenting tonight Rudy Perez. And it's such a tremendous honor for both Ulysses and I to have the opportunity to welcome Rudy and his performance ensemble here and have us celebrate his work, his choreography, and all of his dedication for so many generations of dancers that he's inspired. And we thank you so much for joining us. And my co-producer, my name is Deborah, and this is Ulysses Jenkins, and we are the co-producers of this event. And we, about a year ago, decided that we thought it would be a very interesting thing to start a new performance event here at UCI called the Art of Performance in Irvine. And this is the launch of that performance yearly annual event that we will be having here. And we're so honored that Rudy could be part of this launching.
Yes, and as far as the whole event tonight, we also want to thank some other people like our dean, Stephen Barker, and our chair for the art department, David Trin. They're very instrumental in helping us put this event together tonight. And I have one more thing. Mine is a little big, but can you turn your cell phones off? And that will make the evening very, very wonderful. So, with that, we will begin.
And we'd like to introduce Sasha Anawalt. She's going to do an introduction on Rudy. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you, Deborah, and thank you, Ulysses. When you invited me to introduce Rudy Perez, I asked, who's in the audience? You showed me a list of people, and I said, oh, this is family. Almost everybody on it is connected or has a maximum 3 degrees of separation. But you pointed out that there would also be 20 students, UC Irvine students from the art department, most of whom work in performance studies with you. They have never seen Rudy Perez, his work, his dancers. They are relatively new to performance art and may have come here because UC Irvine is where Chris Burden, Barbara Smith, Nancy Buchanan, and Richard Newton studied, and where you teach. And both of you have been influenced by Rudy Perez. By way of minimal degrees of separation, Rudy is in the DNA of UC Irvine. What has he done and is continuing to do that brings us to this watering hole together, family all, new members and old, to remember what it means to be human, to move and to be moved, and to honor Rudy for his achievements. Wherever we are, what we see is mostly negligible, insignificant, to be taken in as information. For the brain to tell us, the chair is behind my legs by about 2 inches. When you entered the theater tonight, you found your seat. You sat down. You didn't miss the seat. You relied on a built-in 2-inch reference point behind your legs. This is called survival. Your body also instinctively knew how much room there was between you and your neighbor. You adjusted. You know space. We all know our own space. We ignore what's around us mostly. But what happens when we are called to pay attention? What happens when reference points are loaded? This is Rudy Perez. He was among the first in dance ever to hold still, to absorb the weight, and to focus our attention on the simple actions, or one could say mostly negligible actions, our bodies are hardwired to make: walking, standing, sitting. Perez, And I'm calling him Perez rather than Rudy for this stint of my introduction to him, because I'm going to go into his history, and also because I'm a journalist, a dance critic, a member of the press, who has known Perez for 45 years and has been watching his work professionally for 32. And I want to look at him clear-eyed, straightforward, just as he is, facts and stories. But first, I also want you to know that I stand here with a cadre of invisible ghosts, my colleagues who could not be here tonight, including Deborah Jowett, Marcia Siegel, Kitty Cunningham, Don McDonough, Louis Siegel, Victoria Looseleaf, Deborah Vankin, and I'm sure if they could, Sally Baines and Jill Johnson. We, press, are in this room because Perez compelled us impulsively to look inward at movement. And as Johnston said, turn the art object and self inside out. A new vocabulary for dance had to be developed and articulated because of Perez, and some significant others, not least of whom were Merce Cunningham and his partner, John Cage. But Perez was a big chunk of it, and he worked with Cunningham. Because of Perez, the devolution of movement, its reduction, its absence, its minimalism, became an integral part of any subsequent conversation starting in the 60s about the progress of dance, the evolution of performed movement, the dance boom, postmodern dance, conceptualism, a confusion of roles, dancer, pedestrian, performer, real person, spectator, critic, gender, race, class. All of these Perez threw into our face. And this was the 60s, starting with Perez's first piece, Take Your Alligator With You, in 1963 at Judson Memorial Church in Manhattan. At that concert was Deborah Jowett from The Voice, The Village Voice. Perez's suppression of movement caught her attention. Perez has always appreciated the press, saying it often understood what he was about before audiences did. He forced critics to reckon with the opposite of action, and in this way, I think, profoundly affected American dance discourse. Here's an exchange I cobbled together out of direct quotes that happened on separate occasions across several years. Perez said of that one piece, Alligator, at the Judson, "The people at Judson were anti-drama and emotion. That's how I arrived at the stillness that I'm known for." Jowett of The Voice said of that performance, "Dance is usually so actual. It's odd and interesting to see a dance concert in which movement is mostly an agonizing potential." So, here we are. We confront something that it takes literally a lifetime to make. Imagine if you were asked to embody or convey without words agonizing potential. Agon means struggle in Greek. It is associated with painfulness, agonizing pain. What about potential? There's always been this sense with Perez that his movement, though often still, is about to burst. He takes it up to that edge. There is something melancholy about it, as writers have noted. Something dark in that edge, that in-between and mostly negligible place that is so elemental to our survival. That place where we have the potential to miss our seat and fall on our tailbones, or to land squarely and be able to watch the performance without self-consciousness. When Deborah Vankin's piece came out this week in the LA Times about Perez, I was so moved because he talked, I think, for the first time about his childhood in some depth, revealing what we did know, which is that his mother died when he was 7, and he had 3 younger brothers from whom he then had responsibility of taking care, his words, while his father worked as a merchant marine. But what I did not know is the following, and I quote directly from Vankin's article. She writes, "Just don't ask Perez what a piece is about." Of the new slate, which we'll see tonight, a world premiere by Rudy Perez, who turns 86 later this month. Of the new slate, he says, "It's very much how I feel about what's going on in the world." Which is what exactly, Vankin asks. And Perez responds, "I'm not going to say. I'm very abstract." Once it becomes narrative, it's all over. Let the audience decide what it's about. Then he adds, "Come on, they don't ask Merce this stuff." Vankins drops the conversation and picks back up on Perez's biography immediately with, "Dance has always been part of Perez's life. The son of Peruvian and Puerto Rican immigrants, he grew up in East Harlem and the Bronx doing the cha-cha and samba at family gatherings, where he'd improvise on the dance floor. But struggle has also been a through line. His mother died of tuberculosis when he was 7. The disease landed him in the hospital, where he stayed mostly bedridden until he was 10. Perez responds, "I think a lot of the pain you see in my work, that's very sort of contained, comes from that experience, from being in the hospital and hardly having any visitors. It's all very suppressed, but it's there in my work." Does the personal, does the narrative eventually come to play? Does it trump the abstract or sit closely beside it, knowing the 2-inch reference point by instinct, like the you and the person next to you know is enough to know whether to touch or not to touch, depending? What does it mean to be abstract and to be minimal? Is it life condensed, intensified, paid attention to, scarcity appreciated? Perez was born in 1929, the year of the Great Depression's onset. He listened to who he was from birth, a mover. From the get-go, having integrity is what mattered most. That word, integrity, pops up, uttered by him across decades in his many interviews. He came to LA in 1978 and never left. I go into more history, but frankly, 80 of you already know it. And we're part of it. If you were with the Shrimps, Martin Kurzel's Melinda Ring, or if you are Carol Citrone, Lynn Hickson, or Deborah Oliver, you know. Simone Forti, his magnificent contemporary, who's here, you know. Ian Cousineau, Karen Goodman, and others of his dancers, you know. 20 of you are here tonight, deeply invested and curious enough to go figure it out on your own. Because guess what? It matters. Your forebears matter. Perez matters. He came before you and expects you to deviate and break and keep going and fight him, pushing to shatter the critic's codes and change your lives irrevocably by being memorable. Rudy, you are memorable. You have influenced our forward look, whether it was over 50 years ago or tonight with your premiere in front of at least 20 who have never seen you. Imagine that. A new audience. Imagine at 85, a world premiere. And now, from your seat, watch how Perez deals. How does he deal with seats, with sitting, with walking, standing? Everything we think is mostly negligible. He has a method, a technique that is transferable to others. Rudy Perez spent a lifetime on this and has inspired people to stick with him for a lifetime. Thank you, UC Irvine, for getting it. Thank you, Rudy Perez. This award is for you. You deserve it.
I haven't been visually impaired for very long. It's just a couple of years. You know, when you lose a sense, the others all compensate for it. I think I've become even more passionate, much more determined to survive and keep doing what I believe in under any circumstance. And a lot of the way I'm working right now is from memory.
Dance pioneer Rudy Perez finds inspiration in his Puerto Rican roots and bases his dance on rhythms of everyday life. Diagnosed as legally blind in recent years, he continues his art as master teacher and choreographer.
I do miss seeing people's expressions because I can't see their faces from a certain distance. I don't see them smiling. I don't see what they're thinking about. I don't see their whatever. And that I miss because that's a very important part of the human response to people. I thought by just paring things down and working in very slow, everyday kind of movement, pedestrian, if you want to call it that, and then let it evolve into dance. I think I was always a dancer because being a Latino, I was very good at doing the social dance, so I was a dancer when I was a kid. Whenever we had parties with the family, they always encouraged me to dance. I took my first dance class in 1951. At the time, Latinos or anyone of color or whatever was certainly not in demand. I wound up being a soloist. I wasn't your usual dancer. I think that a lot of it had to do with people didn't know what to do with me. It was a very kind of Euro-centric kind of environment, and that New York is, the East Coast is, and you have to acknowledge that. And I think that's a big influence on me and who I am. I'm very proud of it, besides being proud of being a Latino. But it's a good combination. I mean, it gives a certain amount of integrity to my work, and it also makes my work more international. Not just for my people, but for the whole world. At the time that I was there studying, Martha Graham was certainly a very big influence in terms of the passion she had for art. And she was truly a visionary, and she was very emotional and dramatic. I like that. I went and studied with Merce Cunningham and studied with Paul Draper. I think that for me, the experience was valuable in that it helped me find my own way. It was quite possible not to be like everyone else. It's not anything that I've achieved overnight. It's happened over a long period of time. It all started out by doing a little cha-cha-cha. Tamsin's circle should last just a little longer. It should come down slowly as she's circling around.
Okay, so that's me.
Right.
Whoever's last, because that's not set.
Huh? No.
That's not set.
In a strange way, it's almost like opera. It's bigger than life, but it's very, very spare. There's this amazing disjunct between largeness and smallness, and between complex feelings and very, very simple things.
What he did was to have us look at what happens when somebody bends down, when somebody leans forward. It's really dance of the common man.
And he keeps you on your toes all the time. You cannot get into a routine with him. As soon as there is a routine, he breaks that routine and changes everything around, and you have to be again up there and aware of what's going on and aware of what he wants you to do.
He might say what he wants, and then we're all trying to achieve that, and then somebody else goes off in a different direction. He's like, yes, that's it. That's what I want.
You know, Martha Graham would say, I'd never destroyed anybody that didn't want to be destroyed. You know, I didn't understand that until most recently. I mean, you have someone who is part of your work and somehow resistant, argumentative, not contributing, wants answers, and they're going to be chopped. And I liked it very much, okay? So much of it depends on research, and it depends on you really being curious about things and how the possibility of doing things differently. My sense of what I do is to find a way to get the audience, the public, the viewer, engaged in what I do from their own experience, not from what I'm trying to bring to them. So that's very much more like being a visual artist. Most people are not really, prefer not to go see something where it's not dancey or dancing to music, but that's fine. I mean, you can't please everyone. But those people that you do reach, I mean, they're like a wildfire. I mean, they just take the experience and they just carry it on. The most important thing is having a group of dancers, give them something to do, and then shaping it. I mean, at this stage of my life, I strive to make art using dance. I keep making those challenges, not only for them, but for myself.
My name is Stephen Barker. I have the great pleasure of being the Dean of the Claire Trevor School of the Arts. I spent a short period of time as the chair of the art department and have been a dancer myself in the London Contemporary Dance Theatre in London. At about the same time, Rudy was setting up his company in New York, early 70s. And I saw something very similar going on that you've just seen here that Sasha called attention to, and I want to make sure you don't miss it. And that's not only the stillness through which Rudy works, but also the incredible wit of the work that's happening here. It's a kind of physical intelligence that's way, way beyond the notion of intellectual intelligence or traditional dance forms. It's something that Rudy was frustrated by, and working in the strictures of the Graham technique. Both he and I are not tall and blonde, so we were not ideal Graham dancers. So we went on to do other things. And when I went on to work with Peter Brook and with a mixed media company in Europe and others, I began to find the same kinds of things that Rudy explored in his company, which I believe comes out of that notion that you've just seen and are about to see again. And I bring you back to that notion of wit, because what's going on is that constant questioning in the work that Rudy does, the questioning, the fundamental question, what is dance? What is it to dance? And maybe more specifically in terms of the genre that Rudy helped to create, what does it mean to perform a dance? You've just seen it in front of you here. This is everyday, but this is also absolutely extraordinary and utterly unusual at the same time. I think this comes out of something that I want to refer you back to, some comments that Sasha made about the whole notion of agonized potential. Because what happens in Rudy's work is that other sense of agon, the idea of agonizing in Greek, because it means struggle, but there's another sense in which agon works in Greek, and that's contest. To be contesting. And one of the ways in which Rudy's work operates is in the contest, the encounter between the ordinary and the extraordinary, between those 2 inches that Sasha was talking about, and the way in which the 2 inches that allowed you to sit in your seat allows us to operate as normal human beings in the world, and the way in which that 2 inches turns into something completely extraordinary when an extraordinarily creative mind actually takes hold of it and turns it into something that's playing with, and I mean that genuinely, that's playful with the whole notion of what it is to turn this ordinary thing that we carry around all day, our bodies. What is it to take this thing and turn it into a delicate, lively, questioning, interrogative thing that asks you and me as we watch, what is it to dance? What is it to perform? What is the art of performing? To go back to what Deborah and Ulysses are doing here. The art of performance has to do with the skill of that contest. The contest between the ordinary and the extraordinary. You noticed a number of echoes at work in shifts here. Echoes of work that was happening. This piece was done in the early 2000s. But think of the way in which this relates to something that might happen in the theater with one of the late works of Samuel Beckett, for example, exploring very similar themes. As I say, I worked with Peter Brook in Paris and saw the same kind of spareness, what's sometimes called minimalism at work. But this work is not minimal, it's simple, it's straightforward contest between the ordinary and the extraordinary. Part of the agonizing potential, I think, that's at work here is something that Rudy's carried around with him since that stint in the hospital bed, waiting to start moving again. And when you wait to start moving again, you find an incredible value in each one of those movements, a value that is fundamental and deep. I am moving in the world. And what we see here is, I am performing a movement in the world. I'm reminding you of something that you do at every moment, but that you're not aware of. For you, it's ordinary. Here, it's the contest between the ordinary and the extraordinary. And to paraphrase Cézanne, one of the things that Rudy does is to show us that there are two kinds of artists in the world. There are original genius artists, and there are plagiarists. Easy for Cézanne to say that. And what Rudy has done is to show us the way in which an original artist can take the simplest kinds of things and turn them into something that you and I didn't think about before. That is to say, can reawaken us to the whole notion of what our bodies are doing, how our bodies are relating, and the way in which our emotional, physical, physiological intelligence is working in the world. And of course, as you've seen here, is playing in the world. Each time the performers pull themselves across the stage, what you see is the exercise of that contest in which Rudy engages us. And so I want to thank very, very deeply, thank Deborah and thank Ulysses for having us all here tonight. It's my great honor at this moment to bring to your attention the extraordinary Rudy Perez. For the first time in the Claire Trevor School of the Arts, we are offering, as a school, the Lifetime Achievement Award 2015, presented to Rudy Perez in recognition of a lifetime of artistry and innovative contributions to the world of American modern dance, and of course, it might say, the invention of performance art. Rudy Perez.
Between Sasha and Dean, what more can I say? And I'm not going to say very much because there's so much more to the program. But I do want to thank all of you for making the trip down here. So many of you have been with me for so long. So many of you have been part of my work. So many of you have been supporting me at this time, whether it's taking me to the doctors or taking me shopping or something like that. I thank you very much. Thank you.
This is a beginning for you. So let me walk you through it.
You and me, a team. We'll be seeing a lot of each other.
I can tell you how it ends in this place. How it begins, too. Even though I guess you know that already.
I want you to have the freedom to do what you feel is best. I'm committed to that as a rule.
I wish it was really a last day, but it's not. Instead, it's just a day. There will be a million more like it.
There are rules here.
They're for me, they're for all of us. I love them.
But it's also always someone's turn around here. We're a family.
From the very beginning, it was, look at each other. This isn't a bubble.
We support each other.
I'll support you. No, you support me. I'll Atlas you.
Don't forget to help each other. Why I'd even need to say that.
So follow me.
I always laugh when someone says, follow the herd. It's a ridiculous idea. But if you could do it, that'd be helpful.
You'll make friends and enemies. That's to be expected. We take note of people who excel at either, or both.
But don't follow me.
But follow you now? You're moving backward. I've already been there.
I always appreciate the simplicity of going backward.
We're going one at a time. Don't pretend like we're in this together.
What's most important here? What's most fun? It's the same thing, the people. The people make this all right.
Whether we do it together or separately, that we or you have to decide.
You start to wonder how comfortable you are making decisions when someone's watching.
There's no way you're going to know us from what you see at first. Forget first impressions. They don't apply, including the one I'm making now.
I make sure it's known how well I can do, so I never actually have to do that well. My reputation precedes me.
As we proceed, the thing is, I trust you not to let me get carried away.
Push yourself to do better, except being pushed really hurts.
But go easy on yourself.
Work naturally, please. No, not like that.
It's okay to let yourself be confused sometimes.
So what? I'm reaching for something, and I refuse to look forward to see what I'm reaching for before I reach for it.
Look for the big bullseye.
We like to look at the entirety of your job performance.
There's no solution but to talk about your performance.
Thinking it'll give some authenticity to my performance here, and that that'll make a difference.
If we can fix that, we can fix this.
So snap out of it, but snap out of it slowly.
Don't be afraid to delineate yourself from your surroundings. You're important.
Your body's one place, but your focus is someplace else.
The person stays the same, but the background changes.
You're in too much of a hurry to make changes. Hold on to the information first for a minute. You're more inclined to make a change than to hold on to what you're doing.
There's a lot of information. Information's not the problem.
Turn around? Eventually, I won't be there. But does anyone notice?
We are known for our transitions.
You'll hear it said we're recognized for our steadfastness.
If there's anything we pride ourselves on, it's our closedness. I know that sounds unusual.
I'm just being cautious. Why does that always look sneaky to you?
Keep your eyes open.
I can't unsee any of it.
Find the place of energy. We're trying to get away from that other thing. If it's chaotic, that's okay. It's also calm.
I haven't developed a disorder. I've developed an order. Just be happy about it for 1 second.
The space between the electrons and the nucleus.
And from that point on, all I want to create is distance.
I wasn't trying to overtake you. Don't be dramatic.
I'm not, pushing you away. I'm pushing myself away from something. I'm allowed to do that. Just because you're not pushing at the same time, or pushing somewhere different, or not interested in pushing at all.
I want you to do well. No, I won't stab you in the back, but I'll be waiting to step in after you stab yourself in the back.
Don't be metaphorical.
Less about the movement, more about the diagonal. Do you understand?
But that's finally it. I haven't been doing this work because I belong here.
Because this task, this project, it's important to me.
Embrace doing what we do. Because we can't do anything else.
I don't just do this because I can't do anything else.
Do I just do what I do because I can't do anything else? I wasn't trying to overtake you. Don't be dramatic.
I'm not pushing you away. I'm pushing myself away from something. I'm allowed to do that just because you're not pushing at the same time or pushing somewhere different.
I haven't developed a disorder. I've developed an order. Just be happy about it for 1 second.
Or not interested in pushing at all.
Don't be metaphorical.
I can't unsee any of it.
Because this job, this task, it's important to me.
Just being cautious. Why does that always look sneaky to me?
But you'll hear it said that we're recognized for our steadfastness.
Keep your eyes open.
But don't follow me.
We're going one at a time. Don't pretend like we're in this together.
Follow you? You're moving backward. I've already been there.
You'll like the simplicity of going backward.
Find the place of energy. We're trying to get away from that other thing. If it's chaotic, that's okay. It's also calm.
If there's one thing we pride ourselves in, it's closedness. I know that sounds unusual.
It's okay to let yourself be confused sometimes.
Snap out of it, but snap out of it slowly.
The person stays the same, but the background changes.
Go easy on yourself.
There's a lot of information. Information's not the problem.
Don't be afraid to delineate yourself from your surroundings. You're important.
I'm in too much of a hurry to make changes. Hold on to the information first for a minute. I'm more inclined to make a change than to hold on to what I'm doing.
Your body's one place, but your focus is someplace else.
Look for the big bullseye.
It'll give some authenticity to your performance, and that'll make a difference.
Look at the entire performance. If we can fix that, then we can fix this.
And we're known for our transitions.
Push yourself to do better.
Work naturally, please.
Even though being pushed really hurts.
Not like that.
But how comfortable am I making decisions when someone's watching?
I make sure you know how well I can do, so I never actually have to do that well. Any reputation precedes me.
Talk about my performance? Turn around. I won't be there.
As we proceed, the thing is, I trust you not to let me get carried away.
But there's no way you're going to know us from what you see at first. Forget first impressions. They don't apply, including the one I'm making now.
So what? I'm reaching for something, and I refuse to look forward to see what I'm reaching for before I reach for it.
So let's look at each other. This isn't a bubble.
You make friends and enemies. It's to be expected. We take note of people who excel at either, or both.
And from that point on, all I want to create is distance.
It's always someone's turn around here. We're a family.
We can't forget to help each other. Why'd even have to say that?
Whether we do it together or separately, that we or you have to decide.
The space between the electrons and the nucleus.
But that's it. I'm not doing this because I belong here.
I always laugh when someone says, follow the herd. It's a ridiculous idea, but if you could do it, that'd be helpful.
And really,
That's it.
you. Thank you very much for bearing, you know. Those of you who have been around, you know. Anyway, I'd like to introduce the company. They really have worked so hard. Anna Grimaldo. They say it's all about balance. Jeff Grimaldo. We don't have to sit close. It's enough the evening's been so formal. Scatter a little. Stagger, stagger, stagger. Sarah Swenson. The young siblings over here. Jared. Alicia. This is the moment. I said to Jacki earlier, I said, this is the part usually that the audience doesn't like. Let's do something interesting, Kelly, please. This should be more like a performance. Now I know why whenever I go to a performance, people walk out during the section. Let's make it interesting. You've got to be creative to the very last moment. Never make do. Okay, this is Jacki Apple's part section. I think after Sasha and the dean, you better be good.
Well, Sasha and Stephen have already said everything that needs to be said about your work and your past. And I just want to say that it's amazing. Here you are, 60 years into a career, and you make a brand new work, and it's totally in the 21st century about the human condition that we're all sort of stuck in. And this is part of what you do, be in the present moment and completely absorbed in it. And I wanted to say a few words about your generosity as a teacher and a mentor and a collaborator. And I know how many people out here in the audience have worked with you and over the years, and will want to have a chance to say a few words about that experience. And we're going to invite them all, not all of them, well, a few of you, right? And maybe for 1 minute each, because we have limited time, to say a few words about the experience of working with you. How about that, Rudy?
Do we have the house lights on, please, Kelly? Immediately? House lights, please? Or did they all leave? Okay, what I wanted was to see all of you from the past. And so many of you are here, and you keep following me, whether it's my birthday or some sort of archival thing. Why don't you all stand up? That's what I've been waiting for. I thank you so much for being with me all of these years and being with me here tonight. It means a great deal to me. Now you may sit down.
Well, I'm going to sort of start the little bit of storytelling by saying that I first met Rudy in New York in the 1970s when I was working with a choreographer named Aaron Martin. And Rudy and Aaron couldn't have been more different. And they decided to do a duet together, and she asked me to come to the rehearsal. And that's when my relationship with Rudy started. I was a young emerging artist, and about a year later, I had the chutzpah, really, the nerve to call him up on the phone and say, Rudy, you remember me? I'd really like you to perform in my piece. And as a demonstration of his extraordinary generosity, he said yes. And he also said, I'm very, very busy, so you'll have to choreograph it. And I just went, okay. And it was a profound and extraordinary learning experience for me. Of course, at the end, he reworked everything, and I was very happy to have him do that, and it certainly became one of the really important experiences in my life and the beginning of many collaborations in each decade since when I came to Los Angeles. And a lot of people said to me, oh, you're going to work with him? He's really difficult. And I said, yeah, and he's really good. And aren't all the really good ones? So, since that time, we've had a long working relationship, and now I'd like to invite people to come up and talk a little bit about their collaborations, their experiences, and the ways in which Rudy has so shaped their lives.
I'm going to take this moment to just give you a quick anecdote between my collaborations with Rudy, which started with Jacki Apple. And there's someone else in the audience, May's son. May, you want to stand up? At one point, it was mentioned that Rudy did workshops with artists of color, and May was one of those artists that used to come to my studio with Sanga Nagudi and Miriam Hassinger. And we did a piece of mine called Without Your Interpretation at a place called the Art Doc. And that piece now is in the Whitney Museum of Contemporary Art. So that's my anecdote, and I give all the praise to Rudy Perez.
Let me correct you. It was not a workshop for people of color. Okay, it was a workshop for people.
Okay. Did I make any mistakes in my story? No.
Correction on the anecdote. You guys know, you've been with me a long time. And as I get older, you know, I just have less patience, and you understand. You understand. You've got to get things done while you can.
Okay, who would like to speak? May? There's the microphone up there.
Do I just stand here?
Yeah, just stand there and talk.
Okay. Well,
To them.
Okay. I'm just really honored to be such a long-time friend of Rudy Perez and Ulysses Jenkins. And I first met Ulysses when we were students, both students at Otis. So we go back a long ways, and we've been in each other's performance pieces when I was doing performance art. And in the early 80s, I believe, Rudy received an MEA fellowship, And with that grant, he opened up his studio on Vermont Avenue to a lot of different artists of color, to sort of do all kinds of performance workshops and performances in his space, and he was very generous with that. And then he invited Rudy to teach a workshop there. And most of the time it was just Sangha, named Rudy, Marin Hassinger, Ulysses Jenkins, and myself. And I believe at the time it was also supposed to be a workshop for visual artists. And we had a lot of fun in there. and it was $5 a class. So, and since then, I've gone on to do mostly visual-based art, installations, public art commissions. But throughout this time, Rudy has remained a dear, dear friend, and a lot of times he's like family. So we don't even talk about work, and we're family. So he's family.
Thank you. Is there anyone here from the Art Moves workshop, which was really started in 1982 in Lynn Hickson's loft? And both Ulysses and I were part of that workshop, along with Martin Curcels and Steve Mager, Pam Casey, John White, and I can't even remember all the people who were in that. Yeah. Anybody here from that workshop? Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris were in that workshop, and they went on to make that movie, Little Miss Sunshine.
There was really a reason why I came out here, aside from the fact that I wanted to get out of New York for many reasons, as you all heard from the explanations of Sarah and the Dean. I heard Jeff Slayton was out here. That's a good enough reason to leave New York. Because having been influenced by Merce and having been inspired by his discipline and his artistry, I said, well, Jeff's already making it easy for him. He's here laying the ground for him. And so I came out, I had a year at UCLA, and of course I went to various other places, but I wanted this time, and I've stayed this numerous times over the period of years that I've been out here, and I've said to Jeff, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I wouldn't be sitting here right now if I were not following in your footsteps after you leaving New York. So Jeff Slayton, can you please stand up? Thank you, Jeff, thank you. And actually, I did a guest repertory class at Long Beach when he was teaching at Long Beach. And his whole class, and I jumped at the opportunity to work with his students because I wanted to take myself to another place, to working with dancers who had the technical proficiency that I was aware that Jeff had instilled in the students there. That particular class then became my company when they all graduated. And I think there is one dancer here, if not a couple. Deborah. Deborah Young. Anyone else from that period? And then, of course, there's Ian Cusino. Ian, are you here? Okay, Ian is... You want to tell your story? I'm always aware of publicity, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that the press has been very good to me. They've always been very interested in what once they got caught up with what I was doing, in whatever I was doing. And they were very much aware that I was going to be leaving New York. And I decided to form a men's group. All men. And Ian was part of that group.
And that men's group, Ian?
You have to look like you know what you're doing. That was from a direct quote from one of Jacki's pieces that she collaborated with Rudy. What was that piece?
Urban Suite. It was 1984. And is Tom Rashan in the audience?
Is Tom here?
Tom?
Tom.
Oh. Well, Ian, remember the men's group in New York and PS1 in the freezing cold?
I do. We all wore every single article of clothing that we could possibly wear to stay warm because that was the middle of winter and there was no heat in the building. But
the piece was called Heart of Palms, and Garrett List was the musician, and all you guys, it was January and it was the great blizzard of 1977.
you have an elephantine memory because I guess mine was frozen because I don't remember all of those details. So. But no, that was an amazing period for me. I mean, arriving in New York, and just a few months later, Rudy was forming this new group, and we got to rehearse and perform in Judson Church. So that was just a very, very fertile time, and so we worked together there for what, a year and a half, and then you exited to Los Angeles. So, and then I couldn't wait to get out of New York as well. So I came here and worked with you until 1985. So I only had 8 years with you, Rudy. You have all these amazing performers that have been with you since that period too. So as I say every time, thank you for your perseverance, your artistry, and your dedication, and because all of you are the ones that have enabled Rudy to keep going. So I certainly thank you for that.
We can be here all night long, but there is one other person, and I'm sure there are several others. If you insist, just grab the mic off and get out of my hands. I would like to mention Karen Goodman.
Perfect timing, because I wanted to speak next. So I first saw Rudy, his company came out here, it was about 1973, 74. And I had just finished my master's in dance at UCLA. And I'd started dancing only about 4 years before that as an undergraduate. And I had read the books by John Cage. I had not seen Merce Cunningham. And I had started choreographing back in my hometown, Detroit. And I went through graduate school, and it was wonderful, and had all kinds of experiences. And then I saw Rudy's work at Royce Hall. And that was the work that I had been trying to do. What I saw there was my insides, and everything that I was too young and too immature to even know, let alone articulate. And there it was. And a couple of years later, I went to New York to try and dance and have the New York dance experience. And I saw that Rudy was teaching, and I just made a beeline for his classes. And shortly thereafter, I was in his company and had the honor of working with him in New York. Rudy is the essence of essence. Everything that he does is distilled, and as has been so eloquently stated by the Dean and Sasha Anawalt and Jacki and Ian, it is so human, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able somehow to express our humanity, the human condition. And he does it, but he does it in a way that I was able to add a word to how I think of Rudy tonight.
which is it's mysterious. There is mystery in everything that he presents. You don't quite know what it is, but it's there, and part of it is what has been articulated about potential. There's that sense of struggle, but there's a sense of what could be, what might be. Here are these images, these thoughts, these possibilities that just begin to radiate and vibrate out. And that's so important to young artists, to everybody, whether we can talk about it or not. What makes the work important is that there's something there that we can feel without talking about, that we can feel and feel as a group, as the group watching, as part of being part of humanity. And Rudy has done that in such a profound, amazing way. And every time I see his pieces, which I've been doing now since 1974, let's say, that's what I feel. And that's what I think we're all doing. Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you, Karen, so much. I think we're probably getting ready to go to the reception.
I have to present my other role here. I am the mother of the writer of the text. Who has grown up with Rudy as well.
Let's come to the present. Lori, are you here? Yes. Okay. Loud and clear, please.
I'm here.
She is Michael's mother, the newest member of the ensemble. And after she came to observe and to check out my class for the first time, she sent me a card. And Michael, what did she say?
She said that she's glad I was in good hands.
All right, Michael became involved when we did the archival presentation a couple of years ago, and he'll say a little about himself and his experience working with Perez.
Okay. I'm Michael, a doctoral student at University of Southern California. When the school acquired Rudy's archives, there was an archival presentation and tribute. So I started working with the ensemble at that time, and I've been with him for a little over 2 years now. It's been fantastic. I've learned a lot about artistry. I've learned a lot from all of you who come to these events and came to his birthday party and shared your experiences and what you've learned, and it's been really eye-opening. Thank you.
I'm always a little prideful when I'm in academia. Lori?
Yes.
Doesn't he sound great?
He does. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Unbelievable. And his father says the same thing. Now, what did your dad say?
My dad came to watch class, and Rudy asked for his input for a piece we were working on, and his suggestion was to use the diagonals more. So we did, and the piece changed. And for the next 2 months, my dad told everyone that he got to assist Rudy in directing.
I just wanted to say that one more person here who might like to say a few words, and that's our other producer, Deborah Oliver, who met Rudy in the late 80s when she was just coming out of Cal Arts and worked with him and Before we close, Deborah, would you like to say a few words about your life with Rudy?
Gee, okay, so you get out of college and you're blindsided by what really is choreography. And I moved to New York for a very short time and came back to LA, and Rudy was center stage, Karen Goodman, inspiration, Laura Dupron, all these fantastic dancers, Jeff. And Rudy, I was always very inspired by your ability to deconstruct the notion of modern dance. It's inspired me through my entire life here. I've been here 18 years, hard to believe. And I continue to think about that a lot. And I also remember that I had the opportunity to produce you in an event called Dance Without Borders. And it was at the Japan American Theater in 1994. So it was 21 years ago. And Rudy created an amazing piece which Jeff performed in. And he was on a program with Rachel Rosenthal, Rudy Perez, Ogori, who's here in the audience, Mehmet Sanders, and Donald Byrd. And it was an amazing testament to the Ken Company, Fred and Pratt. And it is a testament to the kind of intensity that was going on in Los Angeles at that time, in the 80s and the 90s. And we're so happy that Rudy was there as a pioneer for all of us, a beacon of light to follow. And I want to thank all the dancers. They've just been a thrill to work with. And thank you all so much for coming to UCI for this event.
Thank you, Rudy, for being a dear friend for, almost 4 decades, and for making us all better.
Lots of humble and lots of honesty. Again, can we, Anne and Jeff Ronaldo?